Thanks and welcome to join me on the Friday edition of The News. I'm Kejang Henry Atembe. Our headlines. Police in Yaoundé apprehend a man who strangled the lover to death. After killing the partner, the suspect disappeared into hiding. And burglar ransacked the office of online news platform Cliquez in Douala. Cliquez is a reputed media organ known for reporting on women's and girls' issues. And CDC Board Chair Hope Sona Ebai crowned Chief of Monument, ending what is known as a 3-year vacancy. Top stories. Check us on our respective platforms on Canal International. We begin from Yaoundé, where the police have actually apprehended a man who strangled the lover to death in Mimboman. And after killing the partner, the suspect actually disappeared before he was nabbed by security operatives. Hyacinthia report on that very sad ordeal.
A love story that has suddenly turned sour. The 62-year-old lady allegedly killed by her 55-year-old lover after an argument that degenerated, strangling the victim to death. And hours later, the so-called man of God would comfortably look for a car to carry some of her belongings away, claiming he bought them in the course of their 6 months relationship.
They are talking about being together since October. And just about 3 weeks ago, the culprit killed the victim just because he had the interest of profiting in whatsoever. And then after killing the woman, he decided to escape, carrying all the belongings from the house when I was in the hiding place around Swa. And they met another concubine there. The guy, he moves around, looks for women who are weak. Just because he learned that this woman, the husband died, and she has some property and some children are somewhere out of Cameroon.
The lifeless body of the widow, discovered by family members and inhabitants, days after in her room, in a pathetic state.
En cassant dans la porte, on trouve dans la femme nue, totalement nue. Et on a trouvé les bandes sur toute la tête, au niveau entouré de toute la tête.
At the scene for a remake of the tragic incident by the elements of the Yaoundé Central Police Station No. 4 before the State's Council of the Mfundi Court of First Instance, police authorities advise.
I don't know the kind of relationship people want outside. We just need to be conscious of what we are doing. Everybody, we should take care of yourself. Make sure that any relationship you want to involve yourself there. If you discover anything fishy, the earlier the better. So don't involve one or it is not a good one. Don't manage relationships.
The suspect, an ex-convict, remains in detention as investigations continue.
Saturday, phone actually halted activities this morning to mourn one of their colleagues who died in a scuffle with municipal police officers in Douala. It is alleged that the scuffle ensued when the municipal police officers demanded 5,000 francs as bribe. Morindi.
Bush Aqua Market is unusually quiet this Friday morning. Small sober groups visibly shaken by the incident that led to the death of a fellow trader. Security forces from the police and the Douala City Council patrol the area, adding to the tense atmosphere. He couldn't bear the shock. He fainted, and after being rushed to La Quintine Hospital, he was pronounced dead. My goods were seized. Was asked for 5,000. He said he hadn't sold anything and could only offer 2,000, but they refused. He collapsed at the post. We don't know if it was from the tension.
C'est la communauté qui gère le pays pour ceux qui on ne connaît pas. Le problème de son enfant à l'hôpital, le problème de son agent qui n'avait pas retiré à la banque. Le gars a supplié, ça n'a pas donné, il est tombé.
Vendors say the deceased, who used to sell from a truck nearby, was a familiar figure here. In his memory, they've shut down operations today.
Nous avons pris la journée même de vendredi, c'est là même pour ne pas travailler même en son hommage. Samedi aussi.
The area, locally known as the Chinese market, has long been a flashpoint of friction. Traders say they've reached the breaking point after years of harassment of a sidewalk occupation. What they insist is the only source of income. They also denounce alleged corruption and injustice by the security post composed of city council agents and police officers.
Par jour, ils arrêtent au moins 50 sacs. Et on peut au poste. S'ils demandent 2000, on donne 1000 francs, ils refusent. On va demander que nous ne sommes pas là pour 2000. Donc nos marches, on court derrière vous comme ça pour 2000. C'est 2000, tu n'as pas 2000, tu pars. S'ils ont dit 5000, ce n'est pas 5000, tu pars.
Quand ils se disent que marchandiser quelque chose, ils amènent au poste. Oui, vous partez, vous payez et vous revenez installer.
At press time, security officials at the market post declined to comment on the incident or allegations. Meanwhile, the body of the deceased vendor remains at the mortuary as traders await official explanations and possible action.
Thanks very much, Cynthia. And shop owners at the statistical neighborhoods are equally devastated after a demolition galore orchestrated by the Douala City Council. City Council officials are saying that structures were erected closer to the road, thereby blocking pedestrian crossings. Maureen D.
In Douala City's neighborhoods, shop owners are grappling with the aftermath of sudden demolitions that have left their businesses in ruins. The demolitions carried out by the city council agents targeted structures built after the main road before the gutters or those that did not maintain the required 1 meter distance from the gutters. Extensions constructed to accommodate customers were also removed. We pay taxes. I was informed Bert was not sure about the demolition, and it went so fast. One shop owner who had operated in the area for nearly 2 decades stood helplessly before the ruins of his business, expressing despair over the sudden loss. We own this shop since 20 years. The council earlier told us that we need to go behind the pole and behind the gutter. What we did. A month ago, they came here, wrote on walls that everyone should respect 1 meter away from the gutters. But they did not explain further. They came again and said we should pull out any extensions. What the shop owners did. Yesterday they came and demolished everything. Another trader whose family owned 5 stores lamented that despite being notified, they were not given sufficient time to remove their goods before the demolitions commenced. Some of the shop owners told us that the cleared space will be repurposed for parking and pedestrian pathways. They claim they want to construct a road, but we are yet to see the route. They said it was to construct a paved parking space, and they told us again we need to respect 1 meter away after the gutter. However, many traders claim they were surprised by the demolitions despite the markings placed on their buildings days before. Our team was unable to get further details from the City Council regarding the future use of the space and whether similar actions will be taken in other parts of the city of Douala.
And the Douala branch office of online news outlet Grilled was last night burgled by unidentified persons. And of course, the burglars' forced entry opens or stole equipment and caused extensive damage. Maureen D once more.
In the early hours of Friday, May 9, 2025, the headquarters of Le Griot, a Cameroon-based online platform dedicated to reporting on women's and girls' issues, was broken into and extensively vandalized. Forcibly entered the premises, smashing the main entrance glass and damaging interior doors. The office was left in disarray, with significant property damage reported. Every document, the same thing they did at my residence. It's something to question about. Survey of the security cameras in place Items stolen include laptops, mobile phones, and other valuables, with losses estimated at nearly 1 million francs CFA.
C'est une preuve que nous sommes sur la bonne voie.
It is proof that we are on track. We are just from a training for defense forces. This means our work is being considered, recognized. I think some persons want to give or send a wrong information as if we are against government, which is completely wrong. We have done a lot of scientific reports that sends out recommendations on how the rights of women can be protected in
La
Cameroon.
multiplication des féminicides tels que nous le constatons.
The CEO of Le Griot stated that this is not the first time her building has been targeted. Despite the repeated attacks, she affirms her commitment to continue the platform's mission. A neighboring building was also targeted during the same night, though the perpetrators left with minimal loot. Victims have filed a report with local police, who have initiated an investigation to apprehend those responsible.
It's very unfortunate fate, thanks Maureen. And despite over 2,000 years of history and Africa's booming Catholic population, the Vatican is yet to know a black pope. And as the church grows more global, this glaring omission raises serious questions about race, power, and representation. Tariki Divine.
For over 2,000 years, the Catholic Church has never had a pope of black African descent. This becomes even more striking as the Church's influence continues to rapidly grow across the continent, raising tough questions about racial representation and the biases built into the papal election process. Historically, the papacy has been dominated by Europe, especially Italy. It was not until 1978 that Pope John Paul II became the first non-Italian pope in nearly 5 centuries. And even now, the idea of a black pope seems distant despite Africa being home to over 20% of the global Catholic population. With Africa's church growing younger, more energetic and deeply committed to its faith, there is growing momentum behind the idea of electing a black pope. Such a move could symbolize the changing face of Catholicism and reflect Africa's rise in global influence. But there's a major hurdle. Of the 135 cardinals who were eligible to elect the next pope, only 18 were African. To make matters more difficult, a candidate needs a 2/3 majority to be elected. And with Europe dominating the voting bloc, it is unlikely an African contender could secure the necessary support. The push for a black pope highlights the deep institutional and geographical forces that continue to shape the future of the papacy.
Meantime, Christians are looking up to Pope Leo XIV for peace and unity as the pontiff had his first mass this morning after his election. Sherifa Saleh.
The announcement of Pope Leo XIV's election has sparked prayerful celebrations and spiritual reflection across churches in Douala. Many Christians in the city see his rise to the papacy as a divine opportunity to reignite global calls for peace, especially in Cameroon that continue to face internal divisions and violence.
I personally am expecting from the Pope more dialogue on religious tolerance, bridging the gap between religions and other faith-based communities, so as to avoid faith-based violence, one, and then to use his position to have world leaders agree on common grounds to achieve peace, lasting solutions to avoid wars and catastrophes like what we have in Ukraine and other places. Why not in Cameroon?
With the country still grappling with insecurity and social tension, the faithful are calling on the Holy Father to speak boldly for reconciliation and healing. For them, the Pope's voice represents not only the spiritual authority of the Catholic Church, but also a moral force capable of influencing peace efforts worldwide.
And love among Christian faithful, and love for one another, like the Ten Commandments said, love for God Almighty and love for neighbor.
Courageux au milieu des sectaires, au milieu des personnes qui n'aiment pas l'Église, au milieu du monde, donc d'être toujours témoin, plein d'amour.
They hope Pope Leo XIV will lead with compassion, encourage dialogue among communities, and help bridge divides between groups in conflict. As the Universal Church enters a new chapter under Pope Leo XIV's leadership, Christians are asking for a renewed spirit of peace, understanding, and love to guide the world forward.
And the board of the CDC, Hope Sona Ebai, has been crowned as the new chief of Manyemen village of the Kupe Mwaninguba division. His Royal Highness Hope Sona Ebai has now occupied the vacant stool after 3 years. Prior to that, there was a standoff amongst the families in Manyemen. Details with Morindi.
In a significant traditional ceremony, Hope Sona Ebai, chairman of the board of directors of the Cameroon Development Corporation (CDC), has been coronated as a new chief of Manyemen, a third-class village in Guti subdivision, Kupe Mwaninguba division, Southwest region. The coronation held in Manyemen was attended by sons and daughters of the village from far and near who gathered to recognize and celebrate their new chief. The event proceeded despite attempts by opposition fractions and an order from the senior divisional officer of Kupe Mwaninguba, Mungambo Ekema Williams, to disrupt the ceremony.
The 5 families in Manyemen have decided to bring out their chief Hope Sona Ebai.
Even Juju, they don't be here today plenty. The glad will say, yeah, Manyemen, they don't can show their chief traditional for the population, all for Manyemen here.
He is the right person, not a stranger.
The kingmakers from all 5 founding families of Manyemen, Njiet, Ndong, Bafane, Sungombi, and Tibu affirmed their support for Chief Hope Sona Ebai, stating that he was duly chosen and accepted according to traditional customs. The community expressed unity and determination to uphold their choice, emphasizing the legitimacy of the selection process. The coronation marks a new chapter for Manyemen, with expectations that Chief Hope Sona Ebai will lead efforts to foster unity, development, and peace within the village.
Long live the King, Hope Sona Ebai. That was the curtain for this edition of the Fridays 6:15 with me, Kejang Henry Atembe. We thank you for being there. Coming up, Matthew Fanga with the brief de l'actualité. Of course, he's going to target sporting issues. From all of us, it's goodbye and happy weekend.